I have a booklet here by Cerullio. It's titled, "Who am I?" Question mark. Where am I going? Question mark. Where did God come from? Question mark. God has a plan for your life. Your new life! Exclamation mark. More Cerullio. Dr. Cerullio has a very powerful and unique ministry, ordained by God, expressly for these end times, anointed by God to teach and minister to the nations of the world. The thousands experience salvation and supernatural miracle healings by the power of God. God has given Brother Cerullio a divinely inspired breakthrough strategy for training millions of national ministers across the nations of the world. Right today, using the convenient tear-out form in the back of the booklet to help Dr. Cerullio reach out to help others just as he has helped you. God has a plan for your life. Page 5. God has a plan for your life. Who am I? Where did I come from? No generation that has ever walked the face of the earth has sought more diligently for the answers to these ultimate questions. Most of the initial problems of mankind today are the result of the intensive search for a missing link. Man was created to worship God, and deep within him there is a place reserved for that purpose. Without God in his life, there is an emptiness, a void that cannot be filled regardless of how hard he may try. Cults and drugs are two of the dead-end roads modern man has traveled in an attempt to fill the aching void in his life. As a result of man's intensive cravings, the theme of the generation has evolved into "do your own thing." A spirit of selfishness has been loosed upon the world. Underlying this simple statement is a philosophy that there is no pattern to life. It does not matter what you think or what you do. The most important thing is to please yourself. It makes no difference what effect this may have on others or yourself. Today, tomorrow, or the next day. To many, this is a very compelling thought. For there is no pattern, there is no compelling thought. For if there is no pattern, then there is no pattern to maker. However, if there's a plan, then it necessitates the existence of a planner. Page 5. Page 6. The greatest illusion ever to fall upon the mind of man is the assumption that there is no pattern to life. The Apostle Paul declared, "God shall send them strong delusion." 2 Thessalonians 2:11. Isaiah said, "I will also choose their delusions and will bring fears upon them." Isaiah 66:4. God's plan for man. The foundation is laid and the pattern maker is clearly introduced. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1:1. God created man. Genesis 1:27. Why? Now we are getting to the heart of the matter. Now it is becoming relevant. God created man for two reasons. One, he created man for fellowship. A fellowship that would be based on a mutual love and friendship for the very highest level. Two, he created man to rule the earth. Everything that God is perfect, and his creation of man has no exceptions. There are three things God never intended for man to sin. One, he never intended for man to be sick. Two, He never intended for man to sin. 3. He never intended for man to die. God created man to live forever. Man was created in God's image. When God created Adam and Eve, He put them in the Garden of Eden. There were no things, no chains, and no buttons on them. There were not machines. They were living souls created in the image of God. That's page 6. Page 7. God has a plan for your life. God created man for fellowship, but He did not want forced fellowship. He did not want to force Adam to seek Him. No, He wanted Adam to say, "Oh God, I recognize You as my creator. You are the creator of the world, that You are God, and there is no other besides You." The natural man is prone to consider the outward appearance. He has his father's nose, his ears, eyes, complexion, or build. This is only a surface comparison that is mostly altered by the passage of time. But we must look deeper to see the image of God in man. To find the image of God in man, you have to go beneath the exterior of the heart, the core of man's being, his spirit. There, with all the temporal things in the background, we find the soul and spirit. It is here we find the image of God. It is the power God gave us to like His Son. It is the power of your will. The next question then becomes obvious. If we were created to do the image of God and were created beings, then why do we become sick? Why do we sin? And why do we die? Man alters God's plan. There was only one way to relationship between God and man could be destroyed. And that was through disobedience to the Word of God. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve destroyed the beautiful communion and fellowship God had established. That's page 7. Page 8. God said, You may partake of all the fruit of the trees in the beautiful garden but one, the tree. You may not partake in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you partake of the fruit from this tree, in that day you shall surely die. Genesis 2:16 and 17. What God was saying was, if you will disobey me, you will remove the penalty of sin. If you disobey me, you will receive the penalty of sin. But we see God's plan was established, and man had within him the free will to obey or disobey. Adam was faced with the decision to do good and obey God, or to do evil and obey Satan. Every power on earth falls into one categories: the power of God or the power of the devil. You may classify them as the power of good and the power of evil, the power of life and the power of death. It does not matter what you call them. It is either God's power, His health, His strength, His eternal love, or is the devil's power to destroy man, to destroy his soul, and to kill him. The thief cometh not for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and they might have it more abundantly. John 10:10. The devil influenced Adam and Eve and caused them to disobey God. But their disobedience in partaking of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they brought sin into the world, and through sin, sickness, and through sickness, death. This is how sin, sickness, and death came into the world. Adam and Eve received the penalty of their sin. God said, Adam, you shall be stripped of the authority that I gave you. Now you shall, this is page 8, page 9, now you shall only eat bread by the sweat of your brow. You will have to till the ground. You will have to pick the weeds and thorns in order for your crops to grow. From now on, you will have to toil hard for your living. Even when you bear your children, it will be in pain, and all mothers coming after you will feel the pain when they bear a child, and they will know that every person is born in sin and iniquity. Man, through disobedience, entered under a curse. God's plan of redemption. This was not the end, for God had a plan to redeem man and bring him back into the family of God. There was a way that was once again he could become a child of God. In God's master plan, God's love for man is revealed. After Adam and Eve disobeyed God, the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Genesis 3:7. But God's master plan of forgiveness states, without shedding of blood there is no remission. Hebrews chapter 9 verse 22. Without the shedding of blood there can be no forgiveness of sin. There was a vital part of God's plan to redeem man. When there was blood shed for Adam and Eve, before God drove them from the garden, the Lord made man coats of skins and clothed them. Genesis 3:21. God rejected their coverings, the fig leaves, and provided his own, the animal skins. And the blood of the animal was page 9. And the blood of the animal, page 10, was the covering of their sins. This was the first step in returning man to the family of God, and was firmly established in the law of Moses. Even before God set this pattern for the remission of sins for Adam, he indicated that there was a better way to come. The conflict was between man and the devil, who is represented by the serpent, Satan. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Genesis 30:15. God's plan included his son. One day there would come from the seed of the woman perfect sacrifice for sin that Satan sacrifice for sin that would once and for all bruise the head of Satan and remove the necessity of the yearly sacrifice of the lamb. The serpent there triumphed in the garden, but one day his power would be stripped from him and would be turned to the man, the authority that he originally had. This was the theme and the consuming desire of the prophets down through the ages. They all looked forward to the time when God would send the eternal Lamb. Moses saw him in the person of the prophet who was to come. Deuteronomy 18:18. It was the central message of the Psalms of David, Psalms 22, 23, 24. There are 333 references in the Old Testament to the coming of God's eternal Lamb who would take away the sins of the world. That's page 10. Page 11. God has a plan for your life. I have spoken it. I will also bring it to pass. I have proposed it. It will also do it. Isaiah 46 verse 11. God spoke through all his prophets, and then one day he brought it to pass. 2,000 years God sent his son, the eternal Lamb, into the world for a purpose. The purpose was to destroy the power of sin, sickness, and death, and to bring man back into the family of man. Okay,